Eddie, what a surrounding. It's fantastic. I mean, let's hope we get weather like this in August. But first of all, it's terrific to be back, isn't it?
It is, and you know we won't get weather like this, Adam, for every week of fight camp, and that's going to be half the fun. But it feels good, you know, to finally launch it. I can't tell you, well, you know, the amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes to get this off the ground, the whole concept. You know, I don't want to go into a studio, I don't want to go into an empty hall. I want to try and give you a spectacle. You know, that's what we do. We live for the razzmatazz, and we haven't got 80,000 and Sweet Caroline, but we can still do Sweet Caroline, we can still do the fireworks, and we can create something different that probably we'll never see again. And I'm thrilled by the lineup, and I can't wait to get started all over again.
It's a terrific schedule as well, isn't it? Fights every week, 4 weeks, and they're all different levels, and some cracking clashes on there. What appeals most to you?
Well, I think, you know, like you say, they're all different levels and all different stages of people's career, but what they all are is competitive fights. Now, we're only allowed 5 fights a night with the British Boxing Board of Control, so let's make them all great fights. Now, even we kick off on the first night with Reece Bellotti against Jordan Gill. Now, I mean, that's a fight that should really never get made. Jordan Gill was supposed to have a 6-rounder at the O2, but things have changed now. You know, and on fight camp, the first rule of fight camp is no easy fights. So we're saying to these guys now, look, are you up for fighting on fight camp? Yes, right. Will you fight this guy or this guy? No, I won't. Okay, we'll catch you later in the year. You know, but for now, it's about Jordan Gill, Reece Bellotti, Dalton Smith in a big step up. Great fight between Fabio Wardley and Simon Vallily. James Tennyson against Gavin Gwynn for the British lightweight title is a chief support. And it's the egg and the cheese. And I'm not talking about an omelette. I'm talking about Sam Eggington against Ted Cheeseman. It's a great fight. And you know, you only got to look on paper. And I've sent the line up to you, and I've sent it to Sky and Ed Robinson. And everyone's come back and gone, whoa, some crackers on there. You know, week 2, I'm so excited about Terry Harper against Natasha Jonas. You know, it's a history-making fight. The first time 2 Brits have fought for a women's world title. Doncaster against Liverpool. You know, on that card as well, you've got Anthony Fowler back, you've got Chris Billum-Smith for the Commonwealth title, you've got Aqib Fiaz, you've got Opie Price. Week 3 is a brilliant middleweight fight. Felix Cash against Jason Welborn. Zelfa Barrett in his first fight for Matchroom and Sky against Ireland's Eric Donovan. Great fight. Kieran Conway against Nav Mansouri. Shannon Courtney in a big step up as well. And look, week 4 is going to be incredible. To think that Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin are going to be fighting 50 yards over there with Katie Taylor, the undisputed women's lightweight world champ, Bakoli Kuzmin, Clay Congo, and a couple more to be added. It's incredible. I can't wait. I'm so excited, Adam.
Me too. Let's go back to Terry Harper against Natasha Jonas. She's been a great story last couple of years. Terry, of course, but Jonas, we know her from the Olympics. We know the pedigree that she has, and obviously a mad Liverpool fan too. And you know, what's happened in the last 24 hours. I mean, she's quality. They both are. It's a fabulous match. And as you say, the first time ever 2 Brits from the ladies are fighting for a world title.
Yeah, brilliant in that respect, but such a big opportunity for Natasha Jonas. You know, we saw her with that surprise loss against Vivian Obernoff a few years ago now, come back, got a string of good wins. She sits on the brink of becoming WBC world champion. But what about Terry Harper? She's just come from nowhere with Steffi Ball. She's a real revelation now in British boxing. Great to watch, full of confidence. It's a really, really good women's world championship fight, and you know, I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yep, Katie Taylor, of course, back, as you said, on August the 22nd. Tell us where we are with Katie. Obviously, we thought it was going to be Amanda Serrano. There seems to be a lot of noise out of her camp, backing off, complaining about dates, purses, and all of that. Do you think that can be resurrected, or are we looking at somebody else
I hope
already?
so. You know, it's the absolute plan to do Taylor Serrano here. And both fighters have signed binding legal contracts to take part in that fight. You know, there's some talk about, you know, there's a reduction in offering of purse, never a reduction in any offering to Lou DiBella for a change in Serrano's purse. She was written to give her the new date under the full terms of the contract that she signed, and that is the contract that we will enforce and expect her to honour as well. So, you know, we've given her warm-up fights, we've given her vacant world title fights to make sure that she fights Katie Taylor. So, come on, let's do as you promised and let's give the world what they want. We've also reached out to Delphine Persoon for that fight as well. Be a even better replacement if we could make that fight as well. So Katie Taylor will be in a big fight here, and she's ready for all those defining moments.
Yeah, whatever happens, Katie Taylor is going to be here, and she's one of the stars in boxing, period.
For sure. And whatever it is, whoever it is, it will be competitive, it will be thrilling, but wouldn't it be great if we could get one of those mega names?
Dillian Whyte against Alexander Povetkin. So much at stake in the world heavyweight division. Obviously, the blue ribboned brigade that everybody's talking about. And I think as we entered lockdown, it was a fantastic position. We come off Fury Wilder. We're going forward with AJ Pulev and Whyte Povetkin and Usyk Chisora. And now people want to get back to that. We've had the time away, and we kick off with Whyte Povetkin in the Garden.
Matchroom Square Garden. I mean, it should be Madison Square Garden, this fight, because this is where this fight deserves to be. But, when this happened, I thought to myself, Dillian Whyte won't fight in the Garden, will he? Oh, my God, how wrong was I? He said he'd do it in the car park if I wanted to. This is one of the most dangerous fights in boxing. Two of the best left hookers in the sport. And not just dangerous because either guy can put you asleep with one punch, but dangerous because Dillian Whyte sits on the verge of fighting Tyson Fury for the WBC world title, and time again he is willing to put it on the line for the fans to give them entertainment. Helenius, Chisora, Joseph Parker, Chisora again, just because the fans wanted to see it. Oscar Rivas, now Alexander Povetkin. What more does he have to do to get that shot? And we're working hard with his team, with his legal team, to try and enforce what was promised by the WBC on that deadline of February 2021. But it's all irrelevant if he doesn't beat Alexander Povetkin. And Povetkin is up for this. He knows it's last chance saloon at challenging for world heavyweight titles. He's trained hard. He's kept himself in shape for lockdown. Whyte against Povetkin is going to be an absolute war. And it is going to be thrilling to watch them do it there. Because sometimes in an arena, sometimes you can get caught up in the emotion, the noise. We are going to be sitting there watching them go to battle at the bottom of those stairs. You're going to hear every single punch. You're going to hear every single breath. You're going to hear the words of the fighters to the corner team and to each other. You're going to hear the instructions to the corner. You're going to hear Povetkin soak up those body shots from Dillian Whyte. It is going to be thrilling, dangerous, raw, brutal, and a must-win fight for Dillian Whyte.
Why hasn't Dillian got his shot yet, and will he get to Tyson Fury before AJ does?
I think he hasn't got his shots because the big fights have presented themselves that it was more convenient for those in charge to make than enforce a mandatory, quite honestly. I mean, I understand the WBC and I understand the world wanting to see Wilder against Fury. They're big heavyweight events, but there comes a time where enough is enough. And once a promise has been made, which was February 2020, and then it was delayed by another year, enough's enough, and we mustn't delay it anymore. I've said before, I believe Dillian Whyte should take priority over Anthony Joshua to get that fight with Tyson Fury before February. And look, AJ's going to fight Pulev in November, so he's not going to fight till May, June, July of next year anyway. So there's no reason why Dillian Whyte shouldn't get that shot.
AJ, of course, will be watching Dillian with interest. What's the latest with him and the knee injury, and when he'll be fighting Pulev?
He's back training. He sent me a picture yesterday of him on the bike, putting a big session in. November is the date that fight will take place. We're starting to see some changes now in government legislations that make me feel very confident that by November we will be allowed crowds back in arenas. So we're making inquiries for arenas. We want that fight to take place in the UK. I spoke to Bob Arum last night about numerous different things. AJ against Pulev was one of them. And I believe you'll see that fight in the UK in November.
What's AJ's mindset at the moment? Is it Pulev, or is he, all the talk of Tyson Fury and the Undisputed, the biggest fight in modern boxing history? Is that a distraction, or do you think, Joshua's too sort of mature and experienced enough to know that he's got to deal with Kubrat Pulev first?
Well, I think he's made a little bit of that mistake before, hasn't he? When the Andy Ruiz fight came around, everybody was talking about Wilder, everybody was talking about the Undisputed fight, and sometimes if you take your eye off the ball, and it's the same mindset with Whyte Povetkin. That's why we can't get too caught up in that mandatory. We've got to deal with that. But I think AJ right now is firmly focused on Pulev, because he knows if he doesn't beat Pulev, there's no Fury fight. So he's got to go out, he's got to do a job. Time he gets back in the ring, it'd be nearly a year since he's boxed, you know. So he'll be looking to make the improvements that he's been learning in camp, and the improvements that he made in the Ruiz fight, and put it into good use against Kubrat Pulev and put in a devastating performance.
So you're dealing with Bob Arum from the Tyson Fury side now. We know that the finances, the economics have been agreed, but there's a long way to go, isn't there, before the big announcement?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the bulk is done, because that's always the financial element of the deal, but there's stuff out of our control, i.e. the fighters winning their next fights. But, you know, Bob Arum is strutting like a peacock, knowing that he's now the man in control of Tyson Fury, and, you know, he'll be leading the negotiations. We had a good chat last night. We get on all right, you know, we have our words backwards and forwards, but we both want to make the biggest fight of all time. He's made many of them in the past. I want to make one that goes down in legacy and in history as well. So we're all moving forward now. We talked about the site, we talked about, you know, the other elements of the deal that needs to be done, and we both agreed we need to start moving forward, start papering this, start dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and get this boxed in for 2021.
When do you think, in your heart of hearts, it will happen, and where?
I think next summer. I think there'll be 2 next year. You know, again, look, everybody knows, from you to me, from AJ to Fury, we'd love this fight to take place in the UK. It's a fight between 2 Brits for the Undisputed Heavyweight World Championship. But there is so much interest from around the world that, you know, I do believe one of these fights will take place outside of the UK. And I'm happy to do one in, one out. But I would really be disappointed if we couldn't do one of those in the UK. But ultimately, you know, the fighters, their close team, they'll all make a collective decision. Whilst I want it in the UK, I just want the fight. You know, I want the fight. I want to see AJ become undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and wherever it is, listen, even if it's here, it'll be super special.
So you're dealing with Bob Arum. What about Frank Warren, your UK rival? He's kicking off again on July the 10th. He's saying he's going to have something every single week from the BT studios. We'll be watching with interest. And what do you think he'll provide?
I think it's great. I think anybody that comes back in this environment needs to be commended. You know, Frank, Bob, all these guys, you know, it's not easy. You know, we don't have gates anymore. You know, the revenue's been brought down considerably. It's much harder to make these fights. So my hat's off to everybody that's pushing hard to make boxing flourish again. You know, it will work for some people, it won't work for others. Some people will get it right, some people will get it wrong, but you can't knock anyone for trying. And anyone that is trying to keep boxing flying, keep boxing buzzing, I'm all for supporting it.
Behind closed doors here, but Frank's not too far away. He might wander down and have a little look at how it works.
Yeah, well, he can see a real show. I mean, you know, when you talk about boxing behind closed doors, some people are used to that.
What about the rest of your big names? Thinking Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo, Callum, Smith. Where
that's
are we?
when it starts getting really difficult, you know, and I'll be on to you about that in due course. But, you know, what I'm trying to do here is get fight camp done. 4 great weeks of boxing. Then when we come back in early September, hopefully we're back in arenas with some kind of crowds. Then we've got the others to deal with. You know, everything from Ritson against Vasquez to Selby Cambosis to Josh Kelly Avanesian to Callum Smith to Josh Warrington to Billy Joe Saunders to Usyk Chisora to Anthony Joshua.
It's a bit of a backlog, isn't it?
I know, just slightly. And when I put it like that, yeah, especially. So listen, we'll get through it.
We'll get through it.
It's going to be expensive. We're going to lose money, but you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. And that's why we've built such a great business over the last few years, is to be able to withstand this pressure, to be able to deal with peaks and troughs and swings in the economy. It's going to be brutal. But we'll be okay. We won't give up without a fight.
Do you think Canelo will pick one of the Brits?
Probably not, because I think they'll be too expensive. You know, when you're losing 8 or 10 million on the gate not being there, you need to find a way where where you're going to save that money. Canelo might take a little bit less, but they're going to need a cheaper opponent. But at the same time, the broadcasters are going to want to make sure that it's a real fight. It's very difficult to keep everybody happy.
The broadcasters, or certainly we, have wanted one fight that's eluded us over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and that's Kell Brook and Amir Khan. Who knows what either of them are doing at the moment or what they want to do? Can you give us anything on that?
Kell's all systems go trying to land that Crawford fight. You know, that's the one he wants. I'm not sure whether that will come into fruition, but there's been no discussions about Khan against Brook. But, you know, maybe this is the time where people just go, oh, do you know what, let's do it. But we need crowds. You know, we need crowds for Warrington against Kanzu. We need crowds for Billy Joe Saunders against Callum Smith. We really need crowds for Usyk Chisora and Joshua Pulev. So hopefully they'll be back sooner rather than later.
Do you think Brook will land that Crawford fight?
I think he'll be too expensive at the moment. You know, I think Bob Arum's going to want to cut the purses of fighters, his fighters, and the opponents. And yeah, I'm not too sure that'll get over the line.
Nassim Hamad in the news at the moment because his son, I think it's his middle son, is turning a professional. Adam in the trade. What do we think of him? What do we think of the story? Have you got any interest?
I've not
there?
seen him fight, but it's a great story. I mean, look, you've seen Conor Benn with us; he's fantastic. Chris Eubank Jr. has been great entertainment over the years, and again, Naz's son. Let's see what he's got. Let's get him out. It's hard for anybody to follow in the footsteps of a successful father. I've had to do it as well. It's never easy. You know, you're always Barry Hearn's son or Chris Eubank's son or Nigel Benn's son until you make your own way and you make them become Eddie Hearn's dad or Conor Benn's dad. That's the nice thing to try and be able to do, and all those guys are great fighters, and I wish him all the best as well.
So what are we going to get here in August in this beautiful patch with the city in the background? This is, of course, where you grew up, Eddie, and I mean, it must be very odd.
It is odd, but it's exciting. It's a dream come true. And I wanted to bring something back that was different, you know, not in a dingy studio, something with drama, something with intensity, something that can motivate the fighters, something that the worldwide broadcasters can look at and say, look at Matchroom. They're pushing the boundaries once again. Entertaining fights, 50-50 matchup, career-defining moments, British, Commonwealth, European, World Championship fights, all here, Fight Camp, live on Sky Sports.
Health and safety paramount, and that's all going to be taken care of.
Absolutely. Been dealing with the British Boxing Board of Control for the last 3 or 4 months, making sure everything's spot on, from testing to our hotel down the road, keeping everybody into isolation, PPE, social distancing. Now, we hope over the next few weeks that's going to relax, but everything that we've got set in place as if these fights were happening tomorrow.
Final message to the fans out there who have been starved of boxing for so long.
We're back. Support these shows. We hope you enjoy it. We've put a lot of work in trying to make this as exciting, you know, as different, as fresh as possible. Let's get Fight Camp done. Let's invest our time in it. Let's find out about the fights. Let's support the fighters, and then we'll be back to normal before you know it.